This dude is on trial for trying to overthrow the government, and his big plan to get out of it is to get broken out of jail by his buddies so he can finish the job. In this video, we're diving into the insane true story of how a failed coup, a prison break, and one very angry speech accidentally created a national hero and changed a country forever. So the guy's name is Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings, and in 1979, he was basically the most pissed off dude in all of Ghana. See, Ghana at the time was a mess. We're talking runaway inflation, food shortages, and a level of government corruption that would make a mob boss blush. The whole country was being run by a military junta called the Supreme Military Council, or SMC. And these SMC guys? Let's just say they were living large while everyone else was figuring out how to make a meal out of like 3 grains of rice and a positive attitude. Rawlings, a junior officer in the Air Force, saw all this and was basically like, nah, this ain't it. So he starts talking to other junior officers who are just as fed up. They're tired of their bosses driving fancy cars while the Army's planes can barely get off the ground. The whole situation is a powder keg. All it needs is a match, and Jerry Rawlings, he's holding a flamethrower. So, on May 15, 1979, Rawlings decides it's go time. He and a small group of airmen try to pull off a coup. Their plan is, well, it's not great. They manage to take over a few key spots, but their communication is a disaster. Within a few hours, the whole thing fizzles out. The government forces round them up, and just like that, the big bad rebellion is over. Rawlings is arrested, thrown in a cell, and charged with mutiny. Game over, right? Wrong. This is where things get weird. The government decides to make an example of him. They put Rawlings on public trial. Big mistake. They stick a microphone in front of his face, expecting him to beg for his life. Instead, Rawlings grabs that mic and gives the performance of a lifetime. He doesn't apologize. He goes on this epic, passionate rant, ripping into the government, basically saying everything the average Ghanaian had been screaming into their pillow for years. The trial was broadcast on the radio. Suddenly, everyone in the country is tuning in. This guy, who was supposed to be a traitor, is sounding a lot like a hero. The public is eating it up. The other junior soldiers, they're not just listening, they're taking notes. They see one of their own, a guy not afraid to speak truth to power, even with a death sentence hanging over his head. So while the judges are still trying to figure out what to do with their new political rock star, a group of junior officers decides they've heard enough. Hold up. So the big liberation wasn't actually orchestrated by the main guy, Rawlings. Nah, this whole thing bubbled up from the rage of junior officers and the enlisted folks. These guys, like Major Kojo Boak Jan and retired Major Henry Smith, were actually annoyed that Rawlings jumped the gun on May 15th. But they had to hit the turbo button on their plans because they couldn't let their boy get executed. So what did they do? Secret meetups. Networks of infantrymen and Air Force soldiers scavenging for weapons and plotting the whole jailbreak. So, around 3 a.m., a squad of these badasses from the 5th Battalion and Reconnaissance Regiment rolls up, led by Major Boki John, or at least that's what some say. Rawlings later called him out for ditching like a coward, hiding in the bushes when shots popped off. Zing! They start firing shots into the air, rat-tat-tat, to freak everyone out. Guards? Oh, they're scrambling like cats when you yell at them. No epic shootout Hollywood style, but they ram the iron gates, maybe with a truck or just pure anger, metal screeching like nails on a chalkboard. Rawlings is pacing in his cell thinking, holy shit, is this a trap? Are they going to escape me right into a grave? Jesus. But nope. Doors bust open. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, we're here. The ranks have risen. He grabs his shirt, joins the crew, and they hurriedly made their way running to the Ghana Broadcasting House. They hand him the microphone, and he announces that the junior officers have taken over the country. He tells everyone to stay calm, but it's clear the government that put him on trial just got overthrown by the guy they were trying to convict. It's the ultimate Uno reverse card. The mutiny that failed spectacularly less than 3 weeks earlier had just succeeded because it failed. Wrap your head around that. So, Rawlings is in charge. He forms a new government called the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, the AFRC. And their slogan was basically house cleaning. They went on a massive anti-corruption crusade. And this is where it gets heavy. The AFRC held summary trials for senior officials from the old regime. 8 high-ranking officers, including 3 former heads of state, were found guilty of corruption and executed by firing squad. But here's the craziest part. After 3 months of this intense house cleaning, Rawlings and the AFRC did something almost no military coup leaders ever do. They kept their promise. They held elections as planned, and in September 1979, handed power over to a new, democratically elected civilian government. Rawlings basically broke out of jail, ran the country for a summer, cleaned house, and then peaced out. Of course, that wasn't the last gone I would see of him. He'd be back a couple years later, but that's a story for another time.